Good morning, Flatland Fly Tyer here. Today we're going to be tying a fly. It's an old fly pattern. It's called the bird's nest, and it was developed by Cowbird in 1959, if you can believe that. So it's an old fly pattern, but still very, very effective. And it's designed to look very messy. You can see how this is all fuzzy. That's exactly the way you want that fly to look. And it's a great imitation of a mayfly or caddis nymph, and we'll get the job done for you. It's got pretty simple materials. The tail and the legs are mallard flank feathers, and then the body is Australian possum dubbing. I use awesome possum, and the rib on the abdomen is copper wire, and this is and the thorax is the possum dubbing as well. I'm using a size 14 standard nymph hook and a size 3/32 copper bead. My thread on this fly is going to be a very simple brown A-dot thread. Okay, let's take this out of the vise, start another one. Now I'm going to show you a trick this morning. Anybody that's been tying flies for a while has had trouble corralling the beads. The smaller the bead, the tougher it is. If you just try to take a bead out of the package and roll it around your fingers and try to find the small holes so you can insert the hook, it's a pain in the neck. And if you pour out a bunch of them on your fly tying bench, you've got a big mess. So what I do is I take a loop of masking tape. This has been on the bench for a while. You can see all the fuzzy fly tying material on it. And I dump the beads out on the masking tape and it holds them in place. Then I'll take my hemostats and affix the hook to the hemostats, and I can find the small hole and insert that into the point of the hook. Now I've got my bead on the hook very simply. It makes it much, much easier. I mentioned we're using a size 14 hook today. I usually tie these in either a 14 or 16. There's no reason to go any larger than that. Okay, now I'm going to take some .015 lead wire, and I just want a couple of wraps of that. Helicopter that off, and I want this lead wire to just shove up inside the hollow of that bead to stabilize the bead so it doesn't flop around on the hook shank. Now start our thread behind the lead wraps and the bead and build up a thread base back to the bend of the hook. And snip off our excess. Now our first material is the mallard flank feather, and one mallard flank feather will make, probably 3 flies. So if you notice the barbules on this feather, they taper naturally up here at the end, but we want the ends of the feather fibers to be lined up. So the way you do that is you take off the clump you want to use, and for the tail it'll be about 8 or 10 fibers, and then pull that away from the stem of the feather, and you'll see that now we have those tips lined up. Capture that with your thumb and forefinger and snip that off. Now we want this tail to be no longer than the hook shank. So a little shorter is even better. Hold that in place on top of the hook shank. Take a couple of loose wraps and inspect to make sure you get the right length of tail. I think that's just where I want it to be. Finish tying that down back to the bend of the hook. Snip off our excess. Now our next material is going to be some copper wire in size small. And I usually bring the thread back up to the back of the bead and start tying in our copper wire there. Usually along the side of the hook shank, and come back to the bend. Now for forming the abdomen, we're going to use the possum dubbing, and the secret to dubbing is less is best. So we're going to take just about the smallest pinch we can get out of the package and fluff that out so it's real wispy. Then we're going to lay that alongside of the hook and moisten our fingers and make a dubbing noodle. It's about 2 inches long. But that'll be a slender noodle to form this abdomen. We can always go back and add more if we need to. And we're going to make a tapered abdomen section so it gets fatter as it goes up towards the bead. There we go. Okay, now take our copper wire and form our rib. This makes the fly more durable. Tie off the copper wire and helicopter it off. Now, one little trick is when I helicopter it off, I pull down on the bobbin and up on the copper wire, then helicopter it off. It just breaks cleanly. Now for the legs, we'll take more of the mallard flank feather, and just like we did with the tail, pull those fibers, maybe a few less this time on the legs than we did on the tail. Pull those away from the stem and snip them off. Now we want those legs to be angled down. So we're going to angle them down, hold them against the hook shank, and take a couple of loose wraps. And then we can inspect them. They're way too long now, so we're going to pull on the clump of feathers until we get it down to just shorter than the length of the body. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Again, hold them against the side of the hook shank so they're angled downward. Couple loose wraps and pull them until we have the length that we want. Snip off our excess. Now to create the thorax, we're going to use more possum dubbing and a little less this time, but it's going to be a shorter, fatter dubbing loop or noodle. Not quite as slender as the one we use for the abdomen. And then now we can whip finish. Snip off our thread and apply just the smallest drop of head cement. Now the last step is we want to make this fly look buggy. So you can use a dubbing brush. I just use a little piece of Velcro and I just have at it with the Velcro and tease out those fibers so it gives the fly a very natural buggy appearance. And I tell you what, this little fly will catch trout. And it's a very natural imitation, and the fuzzier the better. Even after it catches a couple of trout and it gets all buggy looking, that's when it's the best. So give the bird's nest a try and enjoy catching trout on it.